I'm Julia Ain-Krupa, and this is the Impatient Moviegoer. Today I want to talk to you about the Leos Carax film, Annette. Every time I watch this film, I can't help but think about my own experiences growing up in the theater and how the dream world can indeed permeate reality. Annette is such an atypical movie, which really makes it challenging to describe. A rock opera of sorts and a play within a play, Annette transports us to a strange reality that is both of this world and yet not at all. A spectacle that takes place on a stage where stormy emotions are like ancient gods. Annette is a melodrama that may put off some viewers for its use of incessant repetition, its presumptuousness and sense of daring, but for those who connect to and fall in love with this very odd piece of cinema, it will remain singular, as it does for me. Here, what cannot be explained is evoked through moonlight and stars, through abstract narrative and song, through an absurdist reality that includes a child that is played by a puppet. What is real in the face of a world that is ruled by the selfish whims of romantic love, you might ask? As Annette will teach you, sometimes it's hard to know. Released in 2021, Annette is an LA story told with a French sensibility. Original and at times borderline irritating, Annette is a work of art that subverts tradition, surreal in tone and told mostly in song. This transnational collaboration has a style all its own. Written and conceived of by the musical duo the Sparks Brothers and developed by director Leos Carax, the main performers are Adam Driver, Marion Cotillard, and Simon Helberg. There's also the puppet that is their child, Annette. Watching panel discussions on the film, one gets the sense that Annette is a personal project for all who were involved. Operatic in temperament and running at fever pitch along empty highways, hurtling towards horizons at dusk, with angry motorcycle rides and stormy nights, Annette presents us with an American landscape that, with the exception of several exterior shots, was filmed mostly in Europe. This creates a kind of double fiction that establishes an eerie tone, an uncanny valley where this story takes place. This surrealistic landscape and an imaginary LA reminds me of the strange portraits of America created by Stanley Kubrick in Eyes Wide Shut and by Lars von Trier in Dogville, both filmed on the outside. What Carax is working with is a starry-eyed notion of a fantasy, a celluloid world where there's always a public, an audience, always a council of judges who serve as witnesses, always a chorus. And I would be remiss to, when I wrote this was before these terrible fires in LA, and I can't help but speak about this movie without thinking of them and the people affected and the place. Annette explores the shadow side of a romantic relationship between two successful performers. One, a beautiful and soulful French opera singer played by Marion Cotillard, and the other, an American comedian at the height and subsequent decline of his career, played by Adam Driver. Theirs is a love that is both painful and destructive. Theirs is a love that will kill. In Annette, we are carried through magical forests and sparse stage sets. When this beauty and the beast walk through a desert canyon singing their duet, we love each other so much. A ballad infused with longing in minor. It becomes melodically clear that their relationship is doomed from the start. The inevitability of tragedy is musically indicated by a progression of chords that repeatedly circulate in a hopeless place. I find this film to be profoundly moving, in part due to its operatic pitch. Dialogue expressed in song allows for a complexity of feeling. In an interview about the film, Driver spoke about the difference in musically enacting a narrative, saying that in real life, quote, we don't communicate through song. In a way, it feels more appropriate. There's something more vulnerable about it, unquote. One surprising note is that Leos Carax first saw Adam Driver on the TV show Girls. Sorry for the lugubrious clock in the back. Driver was subsequently connected with the project for 7 years ahead of filming. I can't help but feel that Annette is a feminist work, somehow, because it tells the story of a deeply ingrained inequality in our society and in the art and artists that we produce. It speaks to the dynamic between men and women that is often accepted and exploited. In his introductory speech about why he became a comedian, Henry publicly reveals his love for Anne. In describing her work, he says she dies and dies and dies, and then she bows and bows and bows. As a comedian, Henry's greatest goal is to kill, and kill he does, both on stage and in real life. I also want to say that this is a construct that we've all been raised within. How did the show go, Marion asks, or Anne asks. I killed them, destroyed them. This is Henry's reply. As for Marion, when she speaks about her public, she says, I saved them. Henry takes advantage of his love's vulnerability and lets loose his anger, killing her for real. The most impactful result of Henry's actions is not the effect that he has on his wife, but what his violence does to his child. Annette is a child for whom the world is not a reliable place. In this film, the sum of two performers of two great egos is a child that is not even permitted to be real, a byproduct of a kind of selfish and idealized romanticism that can destroy people. Annette is played by a puppet, and she remains animated by others until the very last scene, when the truth is faced and the child is set free. It is at this moment that she finally becomes real. Annette is an extension of her parents' fantasies imbued with magical talents that appear after her mother's death. She becomes the fulfillment of her mother's voice, of her mother's lost love. With her celestial song that enables her to levitate, she is connected to the stars and to the moon and perhaps to the spirit world where her mother now dwells. But when the romantic dream is finally crushed, her sacrifice is over and she becomes just a girl. While making this film, Carax says that he was thinking about, quote, this tiny little girl like a shining star in darkness, unquote. Perhaps this comment refers to his own tragic loss, for his partner Katerina Golubeva died in 2011. Perhaps he is speaking about the sense of life brought to him by his adopted daughter, Nastya, who appears briefly with him at the start of the film. It is hard to imagine that such a work could be made without its author knowing intimately of the loss of which he speaks. Though Annette is made by a man and features music written by men, it also exposes a kind of darkness in the male psyche that remains unmined material. As far as I'm concerned, Annette dares to go somewhere that is new. Anne, played by Cotillard, represents a female archetype, a beautiful and sensitive artist with a kind of amniotic tenderness oozing from her pores, and a voice that projects a certain pain and despair that feels classically feminine. She plays the role of a martyr dying to repent for our collective sins. Summing it up in his way, Carax said, quote, opera is mainly killing women so they can sing the most beautiful songs, unquote. Annette captures this tragic beauty, but it also suggests that perhaps it is high time for us to change our tune. If Anne represents women who have carried the burden of holding the sadness of the world, embodying vulnerability to protect a fragile male ego, then Henry is her male counterpart, his bravado and anger reaching a boiling point at which violence becomes his primary form of self-expression, the burden that he carries. I think here of a quote by poet Ocean Vuong, who said that, quote, in this culture, we celebrate boys through the lexicon of violence. When they see themselves only worthwhile when they are capable of destroying things, it's inevitable that we arrive at a masculinity that is toxic, unquote. With domestic violence and femicide statistics seemingly unaffected by advancements in our world, it remains painfully clear that some things have yet to change. Annette touches on this subject and also on the power of female intuition and interconnectedness, as well as the belief that ultimately the truth does set us free. When Annette, the child, finally becomes real, sitting across from her father in his jail cell, she sings to him, bravely pronouncing, "Now you have nothing to love." He has sacrificed and exploited his daughter, losing this privilege. Annette has the chance to speak up before it's too late, whereas Anne had none. In Annette, we witness a tragedy through the lens of those who are left in its wake. And as in real life, reality doesn't always provide a way to fully express what has taken place. Part of what makes this film so moving to me is the ways in which it extracts the bittersweet marrow from romantic sensibility, looking us in the face, revealing the shadows, immersing us completely, and then stepping back from this fiction within a fiction, through the eyes of a disillusioned child, saying, now something has to change. Perhaps she is waiting for us somewhere in the future, already in a place where these established roles are done being played. With that, thank you for listening and for watching. I'm Julia Ain-Krupa. This is the Impatient Moviegoer. Please keep watching movies and looking for the beauty in life, even when times may seem very dark and uncertain. Until next time, thanks.